to talk about Service Locator design pattern. This pattern is used to encapsulate the processes involved in obtaining a service with a strong abstraction layer. This pattern uses a central registry known as the Service Locator, which on request returns the information necessary to perform a certain task. This pattern has 5 parts to it. 1. The actual service which will process the request. The second one is context or initial context that has a reference to service used for lookup purposes. Third, Service Locator. Service Locator is a single point of contact to get services by using caching the services. Fourth would be cache, to cache the stored references of services to reuse them. Fifth would be client. Client is the object that invokes the services via Service Locator. Let's take an example here where we have a service interface that has get name and execute, and SMS service and email services will implement the service class, and we have an initial context. Initial context is used for the first time by the Service Locator, and we use that reference and update the cache. The second time onwards, we would be using the Service Locator to fetch the service reference from the cache instead of going to the initial context or context. And the Service Locator test will have the main method to execute the scenario. Let's build this example and see how it works. Okay, let me open my Visual Studio Code, and first let's create a new file called service.java. This is an interface service. This will have public string get name and public void execute. So this is an interface. Let's go ahead and create SMS service.java. This will implement service, and we are going to create public void execute. Within this, we will say system.out.println, and you would say sending SMS. Similarly, we have one more method, public string get name, and we would return as SMS service. So this is a service implementation. Next, create another service called email service.java. If you see here, we'll copy this SMS service to email service, and we would update this to sending email. Similarly, this would be email service. So if you see here, we have created two services, SMS service and email service, and they would do corresponding processes based on the type of the service. Now let us create our initial context. So that would be initial context.java. This will have public object, and we will name the method as lookup, and we will pass a string name, that would be the service name, and we will check if name dot equals ignore case. If it is SMS service, then system.out.println, and we'll say creating a new SMS service, and we will return new SMS service. Similarly, we will have else if it is email service, we would print a statement creating a new email service. Email service, you see here it's email, and we will return new email service. If not, return null. All right. Now let's create cache.java. So here we would create a list of services. That would be private list of services. We will name it as services, and within the constructor public cache, let's say services equals new array list of services. So let's import this array list util, and this is a cache. We'll just rename this file name as cache. And now we have this constructor. Let's create our service called getService. Public return type would be service, getService based on string name. Here we will iterate through all the services that we have. Services that we got, and within that we will check service dot get name dot equals ignore case, and the service name that we got as a parameter. And if we find that, we will say system dot out dot println, and getting service, maybe we will append this name. We'll say service name from cache, and we have to return this service, return service. So here if you see, we're basically iterating through all the services and checking whether the service name that we got from the parameter is matching with the service and returning that service. Okay, and if it doesn't find anything, then we return null. Okay, so we have this get service. Similarly, we would add one more service, one more method called void add service to add new services. Okay, call this add service, and the parameter type would be service. Within this, we would say boolean is available equals false, and we will iterate through all the services for service. We will call this service 2, as we have already created service 1, and within that we will say services. So we're going to iterate through this, and we will check if service 2 dot get name dot equals ignore case, and service dot get name, if it is equals, then we would say is available equals true. So once we have checked our services, and if we found that if it is available, we will check the condition. If it is not available, is available, not available, then we would like to add it. If it is available, we don't want to add it because it's already present in our services list. So we say array add, and we will pass the service. So now this add service, this is a service, add service method is done. Now let's create our next class called Service Locator. Service Locator.java. This class will have private static cache, and let's create a static block where we would create or initialize our cache object cache. And then let's create our method static service get service and string name. Within this we will have service equals cache dot get service. So this is from cache, and we would check if the service is not equals to null. Not equals null. Within that we would return the service. So if it is available within the cache, we would just return this service. And let's create our initial context. Initial context as context equals new initial context. Here you would say service 1 equals, we are typecasting and we are looking up the context dot lookup and the name of the service. The next one would be cache dot add service and the service 1, because this is the looked up service, not this service. And again we will return service 1 here. So if it is available from the cache, we are just returning the service. If it is not available, then the initial context is created, and within that we are looking up the service and adding it to this cache and returning the service. So let's create our final class called Service Locator test.java. So this is our main method. We'll create our main method, public static void main, and within this let's create service equals service locator dot get service, and we will pass the service name SMS service, and we would call service dot execute method within that service, within the SMS service. Similarly, let's create one more for email service. So instead of service, we will say service 1, or we could use the same service. We don't have to create this. We would use the same service object, and we would pass email service. And let's create 2 more times, because first time when we call this, it would be creating the object. From next time onwards, it should be pulling from the cache. So let's see that. So let's create 2 more. One would be SMS service, and then it would be email service. So we have created 4 times. So first 2 times, these based on the service name, it'll create the objects, and the second, third and fourth time it would get the objects from our cache. Let's compile all these files now. Java C asterisk.java, and it has compiled all the files. Now let us go and test our service locator test and see the results. So if you see here, first time when we called SMS service, it has created a new SMS service and executed the execute method where we are sending SMS. Second time, when we called with email service, it has created a new mail service, and again execute will execute sending email. Similarly, if you see, third time, it is not creating a new service, but it is looking up and it is getting the SMS service from cache instead of creating a new service. And again, we are calling execute, where it is sending SMS. Similarly, for email service, it is getting from the cache and sending the email. So this is a simple example for service locator design pattern. Hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching.